My name is Britty O'Connor,
And I'm Brendan O'Connor.
and we own Flour and Salt in Hamilton, New York. The SBDC that assisted us was in Onondaga, and our advisor was Melissa Zomro Davis.
We heard about the SBDC through the folks that started Good Nature Brewery. They had recommended to us that we reach out to get some guidance in developing our business plan.
I think Melissa had worked with Good Nature, and Carrie Blackmore had suggested that we reach out because we were looking for help developing a business plan just in case we had to apply for loans from banks, and just help envisioning what the business was going to look like. We were at the very beginning stages of starting the business. So Melissa helped us envision the whole thing, like from what everything would look like inside, to what kind of equipment we would need, how many staff we thought we would need. It reads a bit like a comedy sketch now because our projections were so tame at the time. Like what we thought we were going to gross in a day and how many staff we were going to need is close to probably a fifth of what we actually do now.
But we wouldn't have taken the time to develop those numbers if we didn't sit down with Melissa.
Right.
And without an understanding of what those numbers could allow us to do, we wouldn't have taken the step in that direction we took.
Yeah. I think it was hugely important for us to think about the actual physical space. It gave us such a head start, I think, where a lot of people know that they want to open a bakery, but what does that really mean, right? What kind of bakery? What are you making? What do you want the dynamic and the atmosphere to feel like? So to have all of that worked out and considered before we were spending money anywhere really saved us a lot of time and a lot of trouble moving forward, right? So we weren't making as many mistakes, hopefully.
We made plenty.
Yeah, we made plenty, but I think we made less,
Sure.
given the time we spent envisioning what it would look like. The initial inspiration for opening Flour and Salt, I think, probably stems all the way back to when I worked in a cafe when I was a teenager. I worked for a woman named Casey Costello. She was wildly gregarious and just really inspiring and such a blast to work for. So I worked there after school, and then I worked for her during summers too, and I just loved the atmosphere. I loved how independent she felt. She got to make all sorts of decisions, like what the bakery or what her cafe looked like. She did just coffee mostly, and then she got her pastries from other places locally. But I loved that she got to make all these decisions on her own, and she kind of like decided her own hours, and she knew everybody in town through this space that started out as a coffee shop but managed to become this communal space, right, where everyone would come and meet and talk and hang out. I loved it. It was really charming. I think I was charmed by the concept, and then, I don't know, 10 years later.
We also couldn't find any good bagels.
Yeah.
In Hamilton, New York. We bounced around between a couple towns upstate, and we came back to Hamilton because of the community that was here that we had. And Britty was selling baked goods at the farmer's market.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided that a niche product would do well, and we also really liked eating bagels, so we started making bagels, and they took off.
Yeah, it was just kind of an amalgamation of all sorts of things. Like I think the seed was planted when I was younger and working in that atmosphere, and then we both are passionate about food. Brendan worked on an organic farm for 6 or 7 years, and I just got into baking. I was a teacher initially, and I would bake for my students when they had tests or big papers to write to make the blow a little less awful. And then I was baking during the summers to make income because as a teacher, you're not getting paid in the summertime. And it just kind of worked. It took off. And it got more and more fun as the months went on. And then somebody offered us this space for rent, and we just decided it was kind of a fork in the road at the time where I could continue teaching, where I could decide to rent this space, and I chose the crazier fork.
Well, Britty used to make bagels. And now she doesn't.
Well, so I think our roles have changed over time. I how to put this? I think our roles have changed constantly in the last 3 years. So there's much more people management than we thought there would be. I thought teaching would translate really easily, and it does not, which was really surprising, actually, at the time. I think there are parts of it that have translated, but it's just a different dynamic being a teacher of students versus being a boss of people who are paid to be there, right? So there's much more people management, and given that and the time and the focus it's taken for me and Brendan to grow in that respect, we've had to relinquish a little bit of why we got into this in the first place. So I'd say for the last year and a half or 2 years, I did much less baking than I was doing in the first year, which is sad because that's what I liked about this in the first place. The pendulum is starting to swing back now. I feel it, and I think I'm forcing in my opinion, or for me at least, I'm forcing myself to carve out time for me to do those things because it's why I like the job. So the less and less I do those things, the less I like this job.
We just both really like food.
Yeah.
We're very passionate about food, and running a business is not necessarily about the day-to-day stuff that happens. It's more it has a lot to do with the big picture and understanding your clientele and the people that work for you. And the better that we've gotten at that, the more time we've been able to spend on food again. So we're slowly figuring it out. I spend most of my time making bagels. So.
Yeah. And it depends, too, on the kind of staff that you have. Like, do you have the kind of people who are kind of in it for the long haul and are in this with you? They want to be creative with you, and they're invested in the well-being of the business. And we definitely have a couple staff who are that way, but in the beginning, we didn't because it was the beginning. So I think all of our staff were thinking, like, am I buying into this or not? So now that we do have this really strong core staff, that also gives us the opportunity to get back to what we are particularly passionate about, which is like product development, recipe testing, eating food. We eat a lot of food on a daily basis.
That's good.
Yep. The greatest challenge we faced. What do you think?
Today, the greatest challenge that we face, I think, on a day-to-day is understanding how to communicate to 12 distinct people. We have 12 employees right now, and it's our job as the owners and the managers to take the time to understand them and understand how to communicate with them in a way that's effective and works for them. And at the end of the day, we make good products here, but if the experience that our customers are going to have is going to be directly related to the experience that our employees are having, and as long as we can make them enjoy being here and provide a just good, safe, positive environment to work in, then we are in a good spot. So that's understanding how to communicate effectively and positively with the team.
It doesn't run without our team, right? So if we don't have people who are happy to be here and who are passionate about the things that we're doing, this place doesn't operate.
Sometimes yeast can be challenging in the heat.
Sure.
But it's...
Yeah. But I'd say going back to people management, that's been the biggest challenge because I think we weren't ready for how hard it would be. I think on paper it sounds like it's easy, right? Like, here are your responsibilities and this is what you need to do, and now go forth and complete those things. But everybody has lives, right? Everyone is a person and has their own struggles outside of work. And I think if you're a good boss, you care about that and you consider that. So that's an emotional weight to carry as someone who's thinking about all those people on their day to day.
And finding ways to let people do the things they're good at,
Mm-hmm.
and making them feel proud of themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
The most useful business advice given to us: don't do it.
Tim Hardiman told us to put everything on wheels.
Yeah.
That was like the most practical piece of advice. And it totally holds true.
Well, it's
Yeah.
interesting if you extrapolate from that, and it's not just the stuff,
Sure.
but also your ideas.
Yeah.
Things are going to change.
Right.
You're going to create a plan, and you're going to think it's going to work, and you're going to get in a week, and you're going to say, well, that's got to change.
Mm-hmm.
We got to flip that on its side. And so if you take the idea of putting all the equipment on wheels, and you actually just
Sure.
put everything else that works for you.
That's good.
Thank you.
The best piece of advice that Melissa gave us was that we could do it. I think it boils down to that simple piece. Because at the time, the idea was so, it wasn't tangible yet, right? Like, sure, cookies are tangible and I can bake them and someone can say, yeah, I mean, these taste good. I guess I'd pay for it, right? But there was no building. We had no employees. There wasn't necessarily anything for anybody to really believe in. But Melissa really believed in our idea. And that was huge, to be working with someone who said, no, I really think that this could get off the ground. I really think you can do this. Because, of course, my mom is going to say she believes in me. My mom would be like, whatever you want to do, honey, you'll be great. So it was nice to have someone who started as a stranger, right, and became a really great resource. An asset. We felt like we could do it.
Key items that helped us achieve success. I think probably the biggest key has been each other. No, but seriously, we have very different perspectives. We have different strengths. And initially, it actually was difficult to manage and run a business with someone who didn't see things the way that I did. But I think as we've come to understand where our strengths lie, it's been helpful to be able to divide up the responsibilities and know that there's always someone who's watching your back on the stuff that you're not too good at. In starting out, we didn't have a ton of money, but what we did have was space and time. And so we were able to purchase a lot of used equipment over a long period of time and take the time to fix it and clean it. And that really made it a lot cheaper for us to get going. That's thanks to a friend, a family, the Nevisons, that helped us and gave us a space out. And the farmer's market stand for Britty to sell her first items, which really got the word going around town.
I think speaking practically too, which is kind of what you're talking about. On my end, because the equipment was kind of your piece of our success, right? Accruing all that equipment and getting it cleaned and searching and hunting for all these used pieces. We also started building our brand before we were even considering renting a building. So I was still teaching. I remember it was February of what was going to be my last
2015.
year of teaching. Yeah, before we moved back here and I left that job. And I bought a domain. I bought a website domain. And I just bought, we sat in our dining room in Hudson, New York, and came up with a name for the business. And then that same night, I think, we thought, that sounds good. So let's just buy a website domain. And I think that was the first piece in saying to ourselves, I might not have recognized it at the time, but we were kind of saying, this will one day be more real than it feels right now. So I'm investing the time and the thought into making it feel that way.
Yeah.
Right. And then from that point forward, I just started testing recipes, and I take pictures and I post them on Instagram and on Facebook. And at that time, it was just my friends and my family who were following me. But it was enough. It kind of got a ball rolling. So when it came time for us to fundraise and start getting the word out about who we were, there was already a foundation there. And
Britty has been from day one very good at leveraging our network through social media and through just brand development, and taking the time to develop that network and then leveraging it through Colgate University, where we're both alumnus, through Hamilton, through our personal networks, has really helped us develop the base, the foundation of it.
Delegation can be really hard for a lot of people. I think the mark of an entrepreneur, a natural entrepreneur, tends to be someone who has all these great ideas and wants to have control over all of it, right? Especially when something is your baby. Like, you've come up with this concept, you're so passionate about it, you want it to look precisely as you dreamed it. I think that lends to people having trouble letting go of some of the control so that the business can grow, other people can grow. So yeah, you need to be able to delegate and know when a certain area is not your strength and it is someone else's. I think a great thing about being a business owner, something that has been fun for us, is watching other people be successful. Often as the boss, you don't, like, no one's patting you on the back, right? As a teacher, I often had observations, and after my observations, I love critique, so I got to sit down and hear like what I did really well and what I could work on, and I really fed off of all of that. And nobody really does that for you when you're basically at the top of your own ladder. But you have to find joy in your employees' successes, because it's a success for you too, that you've put someone else in a position to do something well and they get to feel great about themselves.
If you were to start over again tomorrow, what would you do?
If I were to start it over again tomorrow, I would go work in somebody else's kitchen.
You would not.
No, I would. I would do it. I would still maintain the dream of opening my own place, but the two of us have no experience in commercial kitchens. I have no pastry experience. Like, there are things that we could have been doing so much more efficiently, so much sooner, had we just been in someone else's kitchen first, you know? And that we got a lot of help from having staff who have worked in commercial kitchens, but I just wish I had experience working for someone else. It's been a really steep learning curve about the more brass tack stuff, but I also wish that I had been able to learn pastry from someone and cake and just learn under someone who was wildly experienced. And I don't think I'll ever be able to do that the same way that I could have 4 years ago now, because I'm running my own business. So it'll never be the same as being like this fresh-faced 24-year-old like walking into somebody's kitchen, you know?
When we started the business, I wasn't really going to work here. I wasn't fully invested because we weren't sure about how many people we actually needed, and we didn't realize what it was to run a business of this size, and we didn't really know how big the business was. So if we were going to start tomorrow, I would be I'd be 100% as opposed to the 40% that I was when we got done. The first month that we were open, first 2 months, I don't remember. It's gone. It was the most intense period that in my memory of doing something. Part of me thinks it would be nice to do it over again, just so I can take the time to remember the intensity and the passion that it forces you to feel about it, because you have to get through it. And I love that, but I want it again. It's so tough to say what would you do differently, because those first couple of years were the things that made us feel comfortable about how to do it now. And I would do everything differently, but I wouldn't know how to do it otherwise.
It was just hard. It was really hard. And because Brendan wasn't supposed to be here, I was the only boss. And I just felt like I was drowning. We thought we were going to run this place with 3 people. We'd have one person up front. We didn't have the espresso bar at the time. One person on griddle, and then I was the baker. And like, that was that. And it would be really simple. And we'd only ever have a line of maybe 3 or 4 people. And it would be like this charming little bakery where I sold 4 cinnamon buns a day, you know? That was what we thought was going to happen. And it didn't happen, which is great, because we're more successful than we thought we would be. Obviously, the alternative is not great. But we just got slammed and we weren't ready for it. We didn't have enough staff, and our menu was small enough that we weren't totally overwhelmed with what we were trying to provide people, but it was just crazy. There was like a line out the door. We were selling out of bagels at 10 o'clock in the morning and with nobody to make more. Like, it was nuts.
We're at 12 people right now. We're looking to hire another 2.
Yeah.
And so that would be, including Britty and I, that would be 16 people. And, our wholesale business, which we thought in our business plan was going to be the core of our business, makes up, I don't know, 10%, not even 10, like 5% of our total revenue at this point. And it's only starting to bloom in this past year. That special order has really taken off. But, we couldn't have imagined.
No, and I think an important lesson there was that we let the market drive what was successful. So that wasn't initially the hope. We didn't really want to be so focused in retail as we are now, but that's where the market was taking us, and it would have been not smart to push against that, because that's really where we've seen a lot of success.
Ask everybody that's in their industry in any regard that they want to get into. Just ask them questions. Ask them how they got their start and what they did wrong. Because everybody loves talking about themselves. So if you ask a question, you're going to get a good answer. But you just got to take time to get out there. And not only will you get a lot of good information, but you'll start building a network that you can use later on.
Yeah, building a community or getting yourself into a community of people who are like-minded and in similar businesses. So when we first opened and when we were getting ready to open, we spoke to Tim Hardiman with Utica Bread, and he gave us, I think people love to talk about themselves, but they also want other entrepreneurs to learn from the mistakes that they made, right? Like, if I made this error, but if I could save you from doing this thing, like, it would make me feel better if I know you're not going to make this mistake like I did. The most important thing for an entrepreneur to do when they're thinking about getting into a new business is talking to other people who already do it. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel for what you're thinking about doing. There are people out there who are already doing it well, and there's so much that you can learn from them.
What's next for us is just trying to make better food. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're trying to focus on doing the best that we can with the space that we have, trying to really develop as an efficient and, we want to be experts at what we do before we do anything else.
Yeah, we're in our 4th year of business, and I think we're finally reaching this equilibrium where we have finally figured a lot of stuff out, and things feel a lot easier than they have in the past, which is giving us the space to get back to all those things that we love so much, like product development. So rather than consider opening a second location, which we get asked about a lot, we'd rather just keep working on the quality here, making sure we're putting out the highest quality possible. I feel like we've watched a lot of other businesses, both locally and nationally, just bite off way more than they can chew and open 2nd, 3rd, and 4th locations faster than they're ready to do it. And sometimes the quality plummets or their cash flow plummets. And we don't want anything like that to happen. So we're moving methodically and thoughtfully, and when we're ready, we'll know.
Slow growth.
Yeah.